It's just like, good evening. We are live again. Here we are. James.
Hi there, my name's James.
And I'm Caroline, and we're going to be with you just for an hour tonight because we are looking at the market and where all the deals are. James, if you want to join me on Clubhouse, we've got the Clubhouse room going as well.
Yep, I'll jump in on that while we do this.
At the same time. So you don't need to, you can just mute yourself and everyone will hear you through there. So those of you joining us in Clubhouse, we are, I need to not have that on so loud. Those of you joining us in Clubhouse, we are talking tonight just for a short hour. We're live on our Facebook community, Property Wealth System community page, and our YouTube channel. And James and myself are two of the trainers for Property Wealth System, and we're here talking about how some of the challenges that people are having, particularly people just starting out in property. They're really getting disillusioned right now, and they're feeling quite probably deflated about the fact that properties are going so quickly. They're going over
too much. Yeah,
going for over asking price. How do I get BMV in this market when it's so hot? And it's becoming a recurrent question that people keep asking about, like, is it going to cool down? Should I just wait until everything settles down? And these are all the feelings that people are having right now that maybe haven't been investing in the market for so long. So just to give you a bit of background, I've been investing in property for 23 years here in the UK. 10 years as a complete amateur doing it all wrong. And for the last 13 years after being trained and mentored, things have been a bit different over the last 13 years. And James, your background?
I've been investing for the past 10 years here in the UK. Only ever bought as a professionally trained investor. Hadn't ever bought anything previous to getting myself educated in property. So kind of, I guess, different kind of fee background to Caroline from that perspective. But we've been trained in the same way. So for the past 10 years for me, 13 years for Caroline, we've been doing investing with the same techniques, with the same tactics. And so that's why I guess we see things maybe slightly differently to other people out there.
Yeah, because we're still buying, right? And we're still finding deals. So we need to try and bridge the gap on why so many people are struggling right now. And look, let's not sugarcoat it. The market is very different to what we will have experienced over the last 10, 13 years. The playground, the whole outlook of the market is very different. So James, I guess maybe we should talk about the difference between getting deals and securing deals both on market versus off market. And if you're in our community, by all means, you can be popping comments into the chat box there or the comments below, and we'll see them coming through and we can answer any questions that you got. So where are you finding most of your success right now in terms of sourcing your deals?
Typically, previous to the last, I guess, 18 months, we were getting quite a lot of stuff from estate agents, and estate agents were good to us. We built rapport up with them over the past, 8 years. So they kind of knew who we were, knew we were buying, knew we were active, knew we were serious, knew if we made an offer, we'd go through with it and we'd actually complete. So we were getting some good quality stuff coming from estate agents. Now, not every single one of those deals was in the shop window to begin with. An estate agent might give us a call and say, I've got something that's coming onto the market next week. Would you like to come and have an early little sneak peek at it? So we were able to start seeing things slightly before the market. And that was, that to some extent, I guess, is almost an off-market deal because it's coming through an estate agent, but it's not there for everyone to see. And, what's changed with that now is estate agents don't need investors as much as they maybe did, 5-6 years ago, because anyone and everyone is wanting to buy property. People are more than happy to get out there and buy houses. And there's been a huge uplift certainly in my investment area, owner-occupiers looking to buy their own homes, which has changed the dynamics because an owner-occupier isn't necessarily going, can I get the very best deal possible? Can I drive the price down? This only works for me at X price. They're looking at it thinking, well, that's going to be a home for me. I'm going to own this for 10 plus years. Even if I overpay on it, it's still going to go up in value over that long term. So it doesn't really matter if I end up buying it for maybe 5 or 10% more than it's actually truly worth. And that has meant estate agents have gone, fantastic. We don't need investors. We can sell the properties for more. We can get better commissions. We can just be getting these people just coming in, literally one viewing. Yep, I'm happy to buy and buying. So nothing or very little is coming our way through estate agents. So we've had to pivot, we've had to adjust and change what we're doing. So it's now very much about talking to people, getting local people kind of on your side, letting them know what you're doing to start having deals brought to you.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think that whole owner occupier hunger, the demand after that first lockdown was really, really quite marked. And the stamp duty holiday, of course, has meant people are just going crazy trying to get transactions over the line before that all stops and cools down. So we can talk tonight really about whatever it is that you are looking to try and achieve or hone. We do have a free webinar that we are running tomorrow night at 7 o'clock. If you want to find out a little bit more about that, let us know. I'll put a link in the Facebook comments. And if you're listening on Clubhouse, if you just pop into either myself or James's bio, you will see the link in there, the bit.ly link that you can register for our free webinar tomorrow, where we'll spend longer than we're going to spend tonight, and can tell you a lot more about what is one of these elements, this getting deals. It is really the kind of sticking point. The question is, should people be focusing on deals first or really money? And I guess money is always the thing that people struggle with first.
But they need to have a deal ready to go to put money into. There's no point in having £50,000 sat in the bank if you've not got a deal to put it in, because it's sat there depreciating.
Yeah. Okay. So let's talk about these off-market deals. So I would traditionally have used an estate agent, knowing and understanding that we are in the market buying. They can get transactions done very quickly with us. They might not get the top whack price for it, but they know the deal's going to get done. The fact that they don't need us so much, with that demand being increased, means that we have to get a bit more creative. And we've got Arte asking a question. Could you tell us about direct to vendor experience? You're needing some creative ideas. Well, we can be very, very, very creative, can't we, James? We have done some very creative things over the years to get direct to vendor. I guess the first question is, why would someone rather sell their property potentially at a discounted price to us than put their property on the market to sell, the open market, and potentially get a higher price? Because again, I think if we understand the psychology behind what a potential vendor's thinking or motivated by, that will maybe help your marketing campaigns.
Well, you can negotiate on two things that you can negotiate on as an investor. You can negotiate on price, so you can be trying to play with the price, get the property for as good a price as possible to make that become a deal for you. The other thing that you can negotiate on is the terms of the deal. So that in that aspect, price is less important, but the terms are. So that might be, well, we're going to delay payment. We're going to take control, but not necessarily ownership. We're going to be able to pay you more money, but pay that in the future. We're going to be able to do some quirky things. And maybe the part of the terms is the speed of how quickly this deal is going to go through. So not everyone is always motivated by getting as much for their property as possible. And it's strange to think that, because we're all sat here as, you'd be thinking, why would you sell something for undervalue? But put yourself in a vendor's shoes who's having to sell quickly, who maybe it's not their property, maybe it's just a probate, and they just want to cut emotional ties to that property. They just think, I want to get rid of it as soon as possible. Yeah. I don't want to be holding on to that, having to do any maintenance on that. I don't want, any hassle. We've bought stuff in winter where people have literally inherited a property and they've gone, I don't want it sat empty in case a pipe bursts and that causes more damage. So we're happy to sell it really quickly, not for as much as possible, but if you can complete in 4 weeks, that'd be great.
Yeah, I know. There's so many reasons: relocating overseas, going through divorce, financial difficulties.
Yeah.
I think the big one for me is that people think that selling their house is fairly straightforward when you're in property, but as a normal layman person, selling your house is incredibly stressful. You've got to declutter, you've got to empty all your cupboards,
make it look presentable at all times.
Someone's got to come round, take photographs. You need to then really look into your cupboards, clean them out. It's quite invasive, isn't it? Access.
If you're not there all the time, yeah.
All of your photographs of where you live are then on the internet for everyone to view and have a nosy at. So if we can get into the psyche of, right, taking all of that element away from them, and of course the fact that they're not going to have to pay an estate agent 1%, there are a lot of massive benefits to someone not going through the traditional routes to sell their property. So how do we attract their attention? How do we get a hold of these people? And how do we let them know about this option? Because I think, maybe people just don't even recognize that there'll be investors or people out there just looking to buy their house specifically in that street or whatever. So let's share some of the techniques that our students that we've worked with over the last 10 and 11 years, what they've done that's worked really well with them. We can throw some crazy ideas. I mean, one of my favorites is Marcin using a sandwich board outside a football match. And he just stood there with this sandwich board around his neck saying, I buy houses for cash, with his phone number and a bunch of leaflets. So Arte, if you fancy that, I mean, obviously football matches right now, they're limited, restricted numbers. But my solution to that problem was, could you sponsor the local football team and have your advert in the little program when they're playing their game, right? So think about what's going on in the local area that lots of people will be looking at or seeing or being exposed to. I love that one, the sandwich board and the football team sponsoring it. It's a good way of getting out there. And
one of the first things that we did when we were looking at kind of thinking a little bit off the, outside the box really when it comes to the direct to vendor stuff was the postman. So finding the local postman and finding which houses were, because they walk the streets all the time. What are the boarded up houses? What are you doing with that post? If the letterbox is boarded up, what do you do with it? To start asking them, and they'll say, sometimes it was like we deliver it to a neighbor and things like that. Oh, great. Which neighbor do you deliver it to? Because they're obviously in touch with the owner then, and we can maybe start getting some lines of communication over saying, well, you've got a property that's sat there empty. Would you be interested in maybe disposing of it?
Yeah. Yeah, I love that. I think this is a really, really key element of this business. It's a people business, isn't it? And to find deals at the very early stages, it takes effort. And I think people that go into property think, I'll make a quick buck. I'm going to get rich quick. It just does not happen.
I'll just look on www.cheaphousesforsale.co.uk.
RT is now going to stalk the postman or the postwoman.
One of my students called Tom, we were talking about that, and he then said, well, I'm gonna maybe look at the milkman as well. And he said typically older people get milk delivered, and if the milk hasn't been collected for a couple of days, that could potentially mean that something's happened. So he was asking the milkman, he said, if you know of any properties where milk isn't being taken in for 2 or 3 consecutive days, then can you just let me know, because I can maybe keep an eye out for future developments on that, because it might mean that someone's been taken into care or someone's not going to be living in that property anymore as well. So some really, creative, that was he just came up with that himself. Yeah.
I thought that was going to go very dark there, James. Yeah. Milk hasn't been collected for a couple of days. He's chapping on the door to say, anyone here? It's a really valid point though. When a loved one passes away, you have the pain of having to get rid of their house, and then you want to empty it, and this is where some of our students are doing some really incredibly creative things like assisted sales, where they're avoiding even needing to own the property, but they're making lump sums of cash.
Emily and Ryan did one of those recently, didn't they?
Emily and Ryan did one of these recently when it wasn't even in their investment area. It wasn't even going to stack up on the numbers if they were to actually buy it. And so they used their training and knowledge and their mentor to show them how they could structure the deal and still make money from it without even owning it. And that was just talking to a woman who was painting her fence. And it was her partner's brother or something. So again, if people are trained to see opportunities or be able to create them, they can be incredibly powerful with getting these leads coming through. And of course, that person has a good experience with you, and then they tell someone else that they've had a good experience. Oh, I met this person that solves property problems or whatever it is. And then now your name is known in the area. and you want to get people talking about you.
And you can be incentivizing that. You can be offering referral fees and things like that as well, because a referral fee that you're going to pay somebody for kind of a word of mouth recommendation and to get your name out there is a lot less than you'd pay in terms of a sourcing fee to a sourcing agent who'd negotiate the deal for you as well. So it can be a lower cost of entry to getting your foot into the door. I'm not a huge fan of using sourcing agents personally, because just the quality and the caliber of the deals that normally come through aren't amazing, and you end up having to pay a premium for using their service. So you can be kind of creating your own uneducated sourcing agents who don't even realize that they are sourcing deals for you. They're just going out and sort of saying, this guy James, this lady Caroline, she really, as you said, Caroline, she solved my problem and just got me out of a bit of a hole.
Yeah, I love that. Now, you make a really interesting point about the whole sourcing agents thing. For those of you that are just joining us in Clubhouse, we are live in our Facebook community, Property Wealth System community page, as well as here in Clubhouse. So feel free to ask any questions. We're talking about how to source deals, how to find deals. And we're going to go off piece from that, because it's not just about finding property, it's about finding deals. And we probably should differentiate between a property and a deal, because I've found over my 23 years experience that sourcing agents that you've just touched on there, James, they tend to bring properties rather than actual deals. Their properties kind of disguise. It's like trying to fit a round peg into a square hole. That's what I find a lot of sourcing agents do. And they may source deals that or properties that stack up for other types of investors, but not educated investors, or what we call in the business sophisticated investors. So there are lots of people out there who are just starting out that are really fumbling their way through this, and they're maybe analyzing deals based on yield as opposed to what we would use. And if they're thinking, God, it's so hard to find deals, I might just use someone else to find deals for me, they could really make some expensive mistakes.
You can't just presume that everyone that will present you a deal will get those numbers absolutely spot on. And is there to source you a great quality investment. A lot of the time, a sourcing agent might get a deal that, and we're not besmirching sourcing agents. We're not saying they're all bad.
No.
Yeah, but there are some out there who will just, an estate agent will say, I've got this deal, we're struggling to get rid of it, and they kind of dress it up as a deal, and when it certainly isn't.
Yeah, I know this. It's them kind of sugarcoating. Now, don't get me wrong, there will be people that buy those properties from, because they're armchair investors, or they're maybe not really wanting to put the effort and the time in. And there are plenty of people out there that want to invest in property but don't actually want to do the hard work themselves. I would say really they should be angel investors. If they want to
get more guaranteed return, if they're an angel investor.
Return, they should be an investor on the angel side of things, rather than just buying any old property that they think and expect is going to go up in value over time. So we've had a couple of questions come in. Ibrahim here, what should I do if I've already paid off one property that I don't need to live in? How do I expand to two? I bought the first one cash. I'm out of cash. How do I expand? Oh, Ibrahim.
Leverage.
Yeah, I'm going to leverage the hell out of that one. Yeah, for sure. So if you understand the numbers, Ibrahim, very, very well, then it's about leveraging, which I mean taking the money out of that property, still having it cash flow when it's rented out, and then using that pot over many, 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 many property purchases, not just for the second one. And the way that you're thinking there, Ibrahim, is very traditional, in that you work hard for money, you save for a rainy day, you buy an asset, you pay off the debt, and then you hold it for long-term wealth. That is really going to slow you down, Ibrahim. That's not going to help you scale your portfolio and grow it to amass the amount of assets that you're going to need to probably be financially secure and safe.
At the moment, lending is cheap, and that's what makes it more sensible, more worthwhile, more financially savvy investment. To say, Ibrahim, if you've got this one property, let's call it £100,000, and you've got £100,000 sat there, if you were to remortgage that and say take out £75,000, then use that £75,000 to go and buy 3 more properties identical to the one that you've got, I'm sure that, if depending on where it is and what it is, but I'm on the whole, the numbers will stack up that you'll have more money in the more cash flow each and every month off the 4, even paying 4 mortgages.
Yeah.
And you're also going to get growth across 4 properties instead of just 1. If that 1 property is empty, you're getting absolutely 0 rent, Ibrahim. But if you've got a portfolio of 4 and 1's empty for a short period of time, you're still getting 75% of your rental income.
Yeah. So Ibrahim, there's a link in the comments there, and make sure that you click on that and join us tomorrow at 7 o'clock. We've got a free 90-minute to 2-hour webinar that we're running tomorrow night. That by all means, it would be great to see you on there. It is live and it is interactive, where we do a full big Q&A about everything. Tonight we're looking at the deals. It's all about the deals and the market. I mean, we can talk about the market in terms of inflation and where we see it going, because one of the common comments James and I hear from our students before they even start out is, should I wait until the market cools down? Or should I invest? What do you think that you should happen?
And who's to say the market is going to cool down anytime soon?
Well, exactly. And I think this is the point. People are trying to predict what is going to happen, and you can't. Right? You can't predict it. What you can do, though, is make your money at purchase. And that really does come with skill. It definitely is one of the biggest differentials between people who are just starting out and really trying to, cut their teeth a little, and those that are a bit more sophisticated and educated and know what they're doing. I couldn't care less what happens to the property market. I know that you couldn't care less either, James, because we understand that we're making our money when we purchase the property, not at some point in the future. And what's really exciting is the fact the availability of money is so vast right now. It is so cheap, and inflation's going to go nuts. So any assets that you are holding are going to go up in value. Any assets that you're buying now are going to go up in value, and the debt is cheap. So if anyone says to me, should I be waiting? I'm like, what are you waiting for?
Yeah.
The perfect storm of buying should be buy. But then they come around and say, oh, but I can't find any deals. They're all expensive. Okay, so we could talk about strategy, because of course you can still make money in property without buying below market value. There are many, many ways that we can make money in property without buying below market value. And I guess it comes, maybe leads us on to this, how you structure a deal, right, James?
Yeah, because if you're able to, let's say, add value to a property to the tune of more so than you've spent on it, then you've made your money that way. So it is about thinking outside the box and how you're structuring it. If you're securing the property, you're only actually committed to buying the property until you've increased that value. So let's say a planning gain, for example, then you're in a position now where you've added value to that property without even needing to buy it. You might not even need to buy it in order to be able to sell it. And that's, I guess, the kind of the assisted sale element. For those of you that don't know what that is, it's literally a flip without buying the house. So you sell the house before you actually buy the house.
Yeah.
So you renovate, sell, and then effectively you buy. So you're de-risking things by having knowledge and by structuring the deals in a more creative way.
Yeah. Now there's a question here. Sorry, I can't see your name. It just says Facebook user that's just come through that's saying, how do I go about buying a first property to let while I'm in a full-time 13K per year?
That's Lindsay.
Was that Lindsay asking the question? Okay. So what's the issue there? Is it the 13K job? Is that what you're worried? Oh, you've had like this the first time? Okay, thought I would squeeze a bit more out. Okay, so is it the 13K a job? Are you worried about mortgageability, or are you worried about deposit? What is it, Lindsay, that you're most concerned about? Because there's nothing that you've said there that makes me think that you are going to struggle, right? There's nothing there that's worrying me that you've said. So
there's nothing to necessarily say that you're not going to be able to get a mortgage, for example. Is it your Lindsay? You're in a position where your salary is preventing you from saving enough to have a deposit ready?
Yeah, I think
there's a bit more info, Lindsay, and we might be able to help you some more.
Yeah, lots and lots of people get a little bit. It is that chicken and egg, though, isn't it? People talk about the money and then they talk about the deals. So when they get money, they're like desperate to spend it. Yeah. And then they're going to make a mistake and buy a property rather than a deal. And then people wait until they have the money before they then go shopping, which is that you know, that cycle that they get into, and then they don't actually even do anything then, because they're just in that rut constantly of, well, I don't have enough money yet. Oh, prices are going up. Now I'm going to need even more money. I better get back to the saving board and just start all of that again. It must be exhausting for people that are going round and round and round in circles and feeling like they're not getting any further. You have to break that cycle in your thinking and your mindset around that. So Abraham was brilliant earlier, demonstrating that he followed the old wealth creation system.
Pay down the debt route.
Yeah, which is work hard for money, save for a rainy day, get the best grades you can to get a good job, and then have no debt and save into a pension, and everything's going to be great when you're 50, 60, 70. And it doesn't work. It doesn't work.
Coming on, Abraham then did say if he was to expand his portfolio, would all those properties be secure? Like he wouldn't lose any of them by mistake. That's where your systems come into play, Abraham. You need to have great systems in place to be able to kind of keep track of, obviously, what you've got tenants in there. And you also need a really good team as well to help you, because I don't know if that property that you've got is where you live, but you don't want to be, you know, and even if it isn't, even if it is where you live and you've got maybe one, it's manageable to look after that yourself. If you've got, you know, as we said, going straight up to 4, and if that then doubles again to 8, you really want to be running around looking after 8 lots of people, dealing with potentially up to 8 lots of issues on property. So you want to be making sure that you've got a good team as well to help support you in growing that portfolio.
Yes. I'm just popping the link in there for you, Lindsay, for our free webinar tomorrow night.
Lindsay's thinking that she needs to save, it appears. It's the thinking I need to save loads beforehand that was worrying me. And then the worry about if I ended up getting myself into debt.
Yeah.
You're not going to like what you hear when we tell you this, but you're going to need to get into debt in order to become successful. Because remember, a buy-to-let mortgage on an investment property is debt. So you need to be taking out these mortgages in order to get the properties that are putting money into your pocket. So it's a bit of a mental mindset reshift. It's a bit of a, you know, more knowledge as well, fully understanding what you're getting yourself into and having a more educated approach when it comes to doing it.
Well, Lindsay, I'll let you know, I didn't have a 13K job when I started. I had no job and I had no income, and I had lots of bad debt. So I think that there's a lot of, again, that old mentality when you don't understand the difference between good debt and bad debt. So good debt is something that you hold in your own name, but someone services it and someone's even paying it off for you, and you just hold the debt. And bad debt is something like, you know, buying a lovely pair of Christian Louboutin shoes on your credit cards that you then have to pay off in your job. Exactly. Good debt, bad debt, says James. There we go. All right. Darren's made a brilliant point. He bought a bungalow outright for cash, £190,000 4 years ago. It's now worth 375. He's regretting buying it outright. Wish I'd bought 2 of them with mortgages. Should I take money out of the property and buy a rental or 2? I'm making $4,000 per month from the holiday let year round. Darren, there's so much I want to shout at you right here, because you're saying you bought a property outright for 190 grand 4 years ago. I wouldn't have bought 2.
You would have bought 4, 8.
I would have bought 8, 10, 20.
As many as possible.
Right. So, okay, we're lots of questions going on about the power of leverage tonight, right? And this is all about just understanding how you can use other people's money, the bank's money, to use a little bit of yours or maybe none of yours and the bank's money to own or control an asset.
Yeah.
So while, Darren, your property has gone up in value to 375, it's about the cash flow that matters. I never really care about what value my properties have gone up in the 10, 13, 20 years I've owned them. It's the money going into my pocket and how many of them do I have. That's really important, because if it's making £4,000 a month, but you've got 1, and you take the debt out and suddenly now you're making £2,000 a month, then you're thinking, okay, well, in order to scale the business, so you're kind of mentally, you're in that rock between a rock and a hard place, because you're thinking, but if I mortgage it, I'm going to lose that £4,000 a month. So if you've done it right at the beginning, but hey,
your mortgage on that would probably, just off a rough quick calculation, be, you know, somewhere between £800 and £850 a month. So if you're making £4,000 a month off that, you can easily afford to be paying £800 a month, but taking out a whole chunk of cash and going and replicating that across 3 or 4. So that's kind of what I was saying to you earlier, Abraham, about it would normally stack up if you were to put a mortgage on there, but we kind of just need to do the numbers. So, you know, Darren's off that, it would, if you were taking out a mortgage on the basis of it being worth 375, taking out 75% loan to value mortgage, your mortgage is only 800, but you've now got the capability of going to buy 3 more of them.
Exactly. So what we do with our students when we first spend time with them is we show them how with £100,000, that doesn't even need to be theirs, but £100,000, you can create over £1 million worth of property in a 12-month period. And that's using the power of leverage. Okay. So when I see you saying I bought something for 190 outright 4 years ago, I should have bought 2. I'm thinking you should have bought a lot more than 10 in the 4 years since then. So yeah, it's about, again, expectations and what you believe to be achievable or realistic. So I went from 10 years being an amateur investor, doing it the way that, say, Abraham and Darren have maybe, you know, thought about doing it, where get rid of the debt, pay it down, and then I own the asset outright, and that's great. That could be my pension, maybe. I went from 10 years thinking like that, and I bought 7 properties. And I call them properties, not deals, because they were just properties. They didn't really make me a huge amount of money, but I thought that they were good, because you don't know what you don't know, right? And then once I got myself trained and educated, I went from taking 10 years to get 7 to buying 1 a month. And I had no money and I had no income, right? So nothing fundamentally changed in my circumstances whatsoever. In fact, you could argue my circumstances were way worse by the time I was buying 1 a month. And it was about absolutely changing the way that I did things. Yeah, the whole model, the whole system, the whole thing changed. Basically, stop listening to your parents. Stop following what your parents have told you.
Unless your parents have, you know, a sizable portfolio and are living off the rental income, in which case maybe listen to them.
Listen to your parents if they're professional investors, but otherwise don't listen to your parents and don't follow what everyone else around you is doing, because they're probably not doing it right. So
James to get the idea here. He says, if I put a deposit down on a buy-to-let mortgage for say £50,000, do it up, can I remortgage it, take the money, and then go again? Yes. Depending on the numbers, depending on the finer details, but that's the principle. And we go through that on the Kickstart. So you kind of see that. You see real life examples of that on that Kickstart as well. So if you want to see some real life examples, tune in tomorrow, said 7 o'clock, and you'll be able to see how that actually works. But yes, James, you can, if the numbers stack up, you can remortgage it, take the money, and then go again. And that is how you can start leveraging and building a portfolio much faster than the save, buy a house.
There we go. Right. So if any other questions, keep them coming. I put the link in the comments for you. For those of you in Clubhouse, there's a link in both of our bios as well. Mm-hmm. Any questions, let us know. So let's get back on track. We're talking about deals.
We've been wondering, haven't we?
We went off onto money. It's difficult because they do go hand in hand, these things, don't they? Deals and money. So if we focus more on the deals, let's say people have got money burning a hole in their pocket. They're the ones I worry most about, to be honest.
Yeah, because then you just go out and do anything because you think, oh, it doesn't matter. I've got the money. I can just go and buy this. And if it doesn't go to plan, it's all right. It's a long-term investment.
Yeah, the students that I feel most comfortable with are the ones that don't have the money but are hungry as hell to be taught and just, right, tell me what to do and I'll go off and do it. Whereas the ones with money have this kind of false sense of security that, yeah, they're all right, actually. They got some cash going on here. They can just take their time. So let's forget money for a second unless somebody asks a money question. These deals. Right, so off-market deals in the current market, where are you most focusing your time and effort right now, James?
We've had an offer accepted. We're due to complete on it this week or next week, but that's come via our builder. So obviously our builder's doing the work for us, and builders want to do work. Builders want to have a nice kind of good pipeline of work to do. And, you know, we bought a dirty, horrible, smelly house and the builders are in there. And we said, look, you know, we make a habit of speaking to, yes, we've got our kind of master builders, but at any one time on site, there's kind of, you know, 12 to 15 different people in the property doing work. Whether that's COVID safe, I don't actually know, but not my problem. But we're going there and we're talking to all the little subcontractors and, you know, just having a chat with them and letting them know, you know, we bought this one. we're looking for other dirty, horrible houses that are a bit run down. If you know anything like that, let us know. If even if it's not on the market, let us know, and there might be a drink in it for you. Our builders, the master builder's gone, actually, yeah, one of the guys I know, local guy, he's got a few properties, and he's got one that's sat empty for the past 7 years. Maybe he'd be interested in selling that one. Shall I set up a meeting for you? So yeah, absolutely, go around. And it was literally just the shell of the house. We walk in through the front door, there are 7 years worth of posts on the floor, like leaflets, and it's back to brick. He's had a go at knocking a wall down, and there's a big bit of a hole in the wall, and that was it. There's no kitchen, no bathroom. Obviously the space for where it would be at the back of the house downstairs, but there is nothing. It's literally just brickwork. Upstairs, exactly the same. So we were kind of like, what's happened? What's the story behind this property? And he said, look, I bought it a long time ago. Bought it for £45,000 or £56,000. I think it was £56,000. Bought it, basically used credit cards to buy it way back when, kind of 10 years ago. Had a tenant in there for a little bit of time, but it was a bit distressed, and it was kind of a dated property. So I went to go and gut it, and have just never had the money to actually started to gut it and never had the money to then finish the refurb. And we kind of thought, our credit cards went off 0%. We put a buy-to-let mortgage on it, so it's just been costing us kind of a couple of £100 a month to own this property, and enough's enough now. We're just going to get rid. So I'm buying it from him for the amount of money that he's got left on the mortgage. So he's going to make a bit of a loss on this one, because we're literally clearing the mortgage for him, which is £39,000. But that solves his problem. He's not too fussed that he's making a loss, because he's cutting his losses by saying, right, I'm not going to be losing that couple of £100 a month now. And then he's got other properties as well. So that's another reason why I do like going, if we're going direct to vendor, getting in touch with other landlords, maybe that aren't as professional as ourselves or as our students, who've just got a few properties, because at some point they're going to go, I've done all right here, I'm looking to maybe sell. And he said, look, I've got a portfolio of, I think he's got 4 others, but they're all tenanted, they're all making money, and he wants a premium for those because he sees them as income generating assets. So we're kind of like, let's reassess, let's have a look at the prices. You're selling this one for cheap because it's a problem to you, but I'm not happy to then go and pay over the odds for something that is performing. I'd prefer something that isn't performing and turn it performing, because that's how I can add value.
Yeah, I had a really interesting conversation with a commercial agent recently, and I was explaining to them that I wanted an empty industrial shed that I could, split up, add value, all this kind of stuff. But he just couldn't get his head around the fact that I wanted something that wasn't making money. But well, surely all of the people that want to buy these want part of it tenanted, so it's generating income, and then you can do something with the other part. I'm like, no, I don't want tenants in it. I want the whole thing completely empty, so I can do what I want with it. I've got complete control, and then I can actually get it at a cheaper price, because there is no income being generated from it, of course.
But that's great, because that commercial agent's probably thinking, I'm never going to be able to offload this one, because or anything like this, because no one wants to buy it. And then if you can be like, no, I'm the person that does buy those ones, they're like, great, I've got 5, which one do you want?
Exactly, right? And so this takes us full circle around how you can get off-market deals from agents, because that's the kind of conversation that agent will have with a vendor, and the agent will be saying to him, you're probably going to struggle to sell that because it's not generating any income. Maybe get a tenant in it. Whereas if he knows that I'm in his back pocket and I'll look at it and run the numbers, then suddenly I'm solving the agent's problem as well. So
and if you can start working alongside that agent, so kind of, look, we do want to be buying them a little, we do want to be getting some money off them, because they are, we're adding value to it by getting a tenant, by splitting up. So that agent at the first off can go, look, you're not going to get top whack for this, because there is no explain. And it then becomes the vendor's decision as to what to do. Do I go and put a tenant in there to try and squeeze out the extra value of that property? Or am I aware that I'm going to have to sell it for a little bit less? There is someone that's probably interested in buying it for maybe not 100% of the price that I want, but I don't have to do any more work. It's the kind of, do I want to put any more time, effort and energy into this? Or do I just want to cut my losses and get out and be happy with what I've got from it?
Yeah, I know, right? So Darren said, thanks, you've given me so much to think about. Don't think, take action. But what I'd say, Darren, is you're saying that you need to find the best way to take the money out of the property, as I'm self-employed with the holiday let. Okay, so again, there might be assumptions that you're making about being self-employed, because I'm self-employed. James, you're self-employed.
Yeah, I'm self-employed.
So we're getting mortgages all day long. So again, don't put assumptions on yourself that you think might be problems. To every single problem, there's a solution. So I'm going to give you your worst case scenario, Darren. A mortgage broker and a mortgage broker and a mortgage broker to all tell you that you need an extra year's before they'll give you any kind of lending, right? So you can't release any money from your holiday let. Now, what are you going to do? Right? Are you just going to sit there and wait for that year's worth of accounts for you to then be able to release the money from it? Or are you going
to find a new mortgage broker?
Or are you going to go out there and find deals and then raise money for it and forget that you even have that equity there? Because, James, we've trained a lot of people with equity. And and actually, I would say probably 60% of them can't access the equity, and it messes their heads up.
Especially if it's their own home, because they're not maybe earning enough. They've built that equity up over the years. Maybe they're kind of getting towards retirement, and the bank will then say, well, we need that equity paid off by the time you retire. So you've only got 3 years, let's say, to pay it off. And they're like, but I've got equity. Like, why can't I use it? Why can't I spend it?
And so we have to do a lot of training of their brains to say, forget that is there, right? So in your head right now, Darren, you're like, I've got 375 grand in that house. How do I get it? How do I get it? How do I get it? Actually, what you should be focusing on is learning the power of leverage, forgetting that, and finding deals and then raising other types of money to do those deals and forgetting that you've got that. And then you can access the money if and when you might decide never to, and then scale and accelerate it. Yes. So I guess what I'm seeing with you, Darren, just from your comments, is that there's a lot of mindset stuff that we need to dig in and reprogram for you, because don't see the problems, let's find solutions. And if you don't know what the solution is, you need to find people around you that have those solutions. Definitely. Hope that's helped, Darren. Challenging you a little bit there. But look, we never let anyone off the hook, do we, James?
No, you need some form of accountability. If you want to become a successful investor, you're going to need some form of accountability, because otherwise they're kind of the giving up. Oh, I'll just think about it. I'll put it off. I'll procrastinate. It becomes the easy option. So if you've got somebody that's poking at you, going, right, what are you going to do next? What are you going to do next? Giving you that level of accountability, that's when you're thinking, okay, I need to do this. I need to do this, because otherwise I'm just going to get my ass kicked because they've told me I've done nothing in the past week.
Yeah. And look, there are deals out there to be had. I'm thinking about the types of opportunities that have been created because of the last year and a half. And just to be clear, we're not capitalizing on people's misfortune. That's not what we're doing. We want to help solve people's property problems. But there will be people out there who maybe have a business that they've lost due to the pandemic.
They haven't spent maybe payment holidays on a mortgage, and now they're kind of thinking, well, I don't really want to be taking mortgage payments on this anymore. I'd just rather sell and get rid. Yeah.
There might be people who've lost their jobs, so have had no income. They might maybe find themselves in mortgage arrears.
Or
maybe
they've owned the property and the tenants have lost the jobs, so then haven't been able to pay the rent, which then means they're struggling to pay the mortgage.
Yeah, exactly. So there are lots and lots of opportunities out there if you are trained to recognize on how to capitalize on them. And I guess that's having the experienced network of people around you who are doing this day in, day out, know what they're doing, really can help and facilitate you and push you on and make you accountable, rather than hanging around all your peers and your parents who are going to tell you why that's such a bad idea, because debt is evil. And why would you want more properties? It's just more hassle.
More headache, more tenants that aren't going to pay their rent.
I know. My mom, oh, how do you cope with all these properties? I pay someone to cope with them, Mom. Right? You leverage off someone else's,
it's
time.
It's not my problem, yeah.
Yeah, exactly. So Ibrahim has asked another question. Is Derbyshire a good place to invest in? I'm smiling, Riley. I live in Birmingham and love the area from an outsider's perspective, so I kind of bought the property in Derby. Okay, so the first thing, Ibrahim, is that you're asking about the location to invest in as opposed to something else that you should be focusing on. We never ever buy location first. We always buy something else first, which is what, James?
That would be like me saying, is the Alps a good place to go on holiday to?
Yeah.
And you might go, yeah, it is. It's great because you can ski, you can do this. No, but I want to go to a beach.
Yeah.
And you don't. So it depends on what that strategy is. What are you looking to do? And then we can decide, is that area going to stack up? Then we can look at the numbers and get behind the economics and start getting into the nitty gritty to make sure that that is a good investment area. Is there an abundance of stock there? Is the strategy that you're going to want to do working in that area?
Yeah. So we can say Derby might be amazing for one strategy, but it might be bloody terrible for another strategy. So it's absolutely about, what are you trying to do? What is that property what's it going to give you? Are you looking for cash? Are you looking for cash flow?
And if it's cash flow, what type of cash flow? Are you wanting to kind of a higher risk reward strategy? You want something a bit more safer, a bit more steady? It completely depends.
Yeah. So Abraham, we need a lot more time with you to talk about your strategy, what you're trying to achieve. And then we dive into, well, what location is that strategy going to perform best in? And it's not about where you live. It's nothing to do with where you live. So I opened up a hotel in the middle of the pandemic, and it's 4.5 hours south of where I live. Right. So it's nothing to do with where you live.
The questions of how do you check guests in when you're 4.5 hours away? So that's going to come in next, isn't it, Caroline?
Yeah. No, I don't check the guests in at all, ever. And again, I'm owning and controlling an asset that is generating cash flow, but I'm leveraging other people's time and experience to run it for me. Is that going to cost me money? Yes. Yeah. It's going to cost me a hell of a lot less because I'm not paying them salaries. I'm paying basically one person an hourly rate to clean and do the turnarounds, and everything else is systemized. Everything is systemized.
On that basis, the people, that's how it costs. But would Richard Branson have been able to build up a business empire if he wasn't prepared to pay other people? And the answer is most definitely going to be no, because he's not a pilot. He wouldn't be able to set up Virgin Atlantic. He wouldn't be able to fly multiple planes at multiple times. He wouldn't be able to serve people multiple drinks, check people's luggage in. He has to pay these people in order for the business to be able to thrive and grow.
Yeah. So Darren and Abraham, I'd love to spend time with you to say, okay, if Richard Branson was in your position right now, would he be sitting going, I wonder if Derbyshire is a good area to invest in? And would he be thinking about, oh, I need to think about the best way to get my money? Or is he like, right, who am I going to find that's going to show me how to do this? That's what I think Richard Branson would do. And I definitely model a lot of what Richard Branson does in my business and the way that I think about things. I mean, even to the point where I basically have people doing everything in and around my own house, things that I probably should be doing myself. But it's about analyzing what are high value tasks, what are the tasks that you carry out on a daily basis that can make you money, and what are the tasks that you're spending your time on that are not going to make you money. And you could really get
enjoy and don't enjoy as well to some extent.
Yeah, enjoy and don't enjoy, exactly. So emptying the dishwasher is never going to make me money, so I'm quite happy.
Outsource that to Nick.
I will outsource that to the husband, or to the cleaner. But no, absolutely. The ironing, and my mum is horrified at the fact that I basically do nothing around the house. But doing housework is not going to make my business any money. Therefore, why should I spend one of my most valuable commodities doing that? So again, leverage other people around you. Use people that are better than you, Darren and Abraham, and those of you, and James, those of you that are listening in Clubhouse. It's all about, who do you know that's better than you? Be the weakest link in your business.
Yeah.
And own that, because I know my weaknesses and I have a lot of them, but I've also got multiple businesses that make multi-millions, and I just basically use people that are much, much better than me in all areas to create, scale, and grow those. And it's exactly the same in property, right? But it is going to take effort at the beginning. It's going to take effort, and as long as everyone recognizes that there's going to be challenges and things that don't go to plan, that are difficult. In fact, on our podcast, for those of you that don't know, we have a podcast called This Property Life. We interview a number of our students who talk about what challenges they've overcome, and what successes they've had, and what challenges. And I don't like calling about failure. Don't want to call it failure, but maybe learnings in their journey. By all means, make sure that you check out This Property Life, because again, there's lots and lots of amazing little golden nuggets of information in there. There we go. So Abraham, I'll tune into your Facebook broadcast. I'm just learning the basics first. Let's try, you guys. I'm new to all of this. Okay. So what I'd say, Abraham, is just don't take too long, because yeah, you can join one of our webinar classes. And we have, again, we have a 90-minute web class, and then we have a 3-day fairly intensive class that could help you out there. So again, if you are, it's only for people that are serious. Like, we only really want to spend our most valuable commodity time with people who are serious about this. And there's a lot of tire kickers out there, a lot of people who are, you know, going around and just watching YouTube videos to learn how to invest in property. And it's fairly clear that they're not going to achieve a huge amount by watching YouTube videos. It takes
you need to be getting information from a kind of an up-to-date source as well. YouTube videos, you know, it could be posted early this year, could be posted last year, pre-pandemic, and the market changes. And that's kind of, you know, that's almost what's brought us here today to discuss where all the deals gone, because the market's changed. If this was a YouTube video from 2 years ago, it would have been, okay, we'll just go to the estate agents, you know, build up rapport with them, work with them, but you need to pivot when things change. So that's why the you know, the up-to-date info that you guys, you know, want to be receiving is so critical and crucial to your success moving forwards.
Yeah. So keep the questions coming, anything that you want to ask. So on that, we've talked quite a bit about mindset, money, deals, the market. What are you most excited about in the property market at the moment, James? What are you seeing that is getting your tail wagging?
I think we've got experience of, lots of experience of residential, some experience of commercial stuff, but moving to the commercial industry, in the commercial arena, getting, conversions and changing things, the whole work from home, and maybe potentially the death of the office, because that's going to be a lot of space that's going to be sat there empty. And planning rules will probably change in order to be able to get that converted back into residential a lot faster, and creating bigger units as well. I do like kind of bigger units. I've never been a huge fan of like a small little pokey 1-bed flat, renting that, because how happy is someone going to be in there? They're going to kind of think, well, I'm going to outgrow this very quickly. I want somewhere a bit bigger. So potentially looking to start creating the, a larger unit, something that's bigger, maybe like sort of taking an office, for example, that someone used to work in, turning that into a 2-bed flat where they still work from it in one of the spare bedrooms. You've got a little home office set up, and they're going to be happy there and can see themselves staying there for longer as well. So they're the kind of things that I'm excited to be looking at and getting your teeth sunk into as and when the market starts to change and adapt, and the government pick up on what needs to happen in order for people to have the living space that they need in the near future.
Yeah, I know. This whole commercial to residential is going to grow arms and legs. I saw an article last week that got everyone really hot under the collar, that Morgan Stanley had insisted that all employees must go back to the office by whatever date it was. And people are saying, that's outrageous to expect people to do that. But you got to think from a company's perspective that if they're paying rent on a huge old building, and you got to think from a company's perspective that if they're paying rent on a huge... Is that you, James?
I think so, yeah.
That was James that did that.
No, my bad. I was trying to see, because it just comes up with Facebook user here on StreamYard. So I was trying to log on to Facebook to see who was commenting, and it started playing the video.
Okay, so let's not do that.
We won't do that.
So from an employer's perspective, they're paying rent on a huge big building. They've got all these employees that are working from home. They're not seeing them. They're not there for training. They're not there for meetings, all that kind of stuff. They're probably going to start piling on the pressure, or they're going to say to the market, actually, we need a smaller unit.
Yeah.
And landlords with the bigger units are going to be like...
Mm-hmm. But also some people are tied, companies are kind of tied into that larger office space on a long-term deal, and trying to get out of that's going to be a challenge. So there are going to be some companies that are going to have their hands forced because they've already probably signed a 10, 15, 20-year agreement to take that office space and aren't going to need it.
Yeah, there we go. I know. So commercial to resi is one strategy that's very exciting. I'm very excited about my commercial industrial sheds. Mm-hmm. For people that are watching this in the community, or in Clubhouse, they're probably thinking, well, that's not something that I'm really going to be looking at. On the residential bog standard property side of things, what strategies?
Buy-to-lets.
Yeah.
Again, buy-to-lets, the kind of the bread and butter, the foundation of your portfolio. There's always going to be a need for it. There's always going to be a call for people to be renting property, and you know, it's about understanding the psyche of people. Where are they going to want to rent? What are they going to want to rent? And chances are, you know, it's going to be maybe not quite in city centres anymore. It's going to be on outskirts, moving a little bit further out. People are going to be, you know, wanting somewhere, a space in the property that they can probably be working from home in as well. So it's kind of thinking about that and having a look and kind of fully understanding your customer. Your tenant is your customer, understanding their needs and providing them with a good quality accommodation that meets their needs, that they're happy in and are happy to stay there long term, because that will reduce our void period. I
do love buy-to-lets. I love buy-to-lets. Anything from, you know, one bed starter for people first moving out of, you know, mum and dad's, and then right the way up to family homes, 3-4 bedroom family homes. What do you think about the attitude towards the owner occupier in the UK? Because I would say about, let's say 4 or 5 years ago, we saw lots and lots of statistics that showed that there were less owner occupiers in the market than historically the UK had. And that, you know, in 2030, 2040, we're going to see nearly half the population here in the UK will be renters.
Well, the freedom, renting gives a lot of freedom, and people are flexible. People are going to be even more flexible now. They're going to want to stay. They're going to want to move. They're going to want to go, right, actually, let me find something that I like. And if I don't like it, it's easy enough to change it. The hassle of having to do maintenance on your own property. I read a great quote, a mortgage on your own home, one that you live in, is the minimum you're going to be paying each and every month, but your rent is the maximum you're going to be paying each and every month. So it's a nice kind of way to put it, and a lot of people are seeing it in that way. Well, my rent, it's not dead money anymore, it's the maximum I'm capping, because if there's major repairs needed to be done to the property, not my problem, someone else can do it.
Yeah, this is it. People's mindsets are changing. And if they've maybe done the whole working from home thing, they needed more space.
It's easier to get out into it's easier to swap rentals than it is for buying a home. The mortgage changes from off the back of the GFC, the global financial crisis, makes it harder for people to get their own home mortgages as well. And there's been a bit of a clamour about, well, if you've been able to pay rent for 3, 4, 5 years of this amount, it goes to show that you're going to be able to pay a mortgage of that amount for indefinitely. So lenders, there's a bit of pressure kind of on lenders to change those mortgage rules, mortgage conditions, but I don't think we'll see that happening anytime soon because of the responsible lending guidelines that have been issued by the Bank of England.
I know it's really exciting times. I'm delighted that I did start when I started, and I just think, I was speaking to one of our other trainers and saying, how do we encourage and reassure people who are a little bit tentative, maybe a little bit nervous because of the climate right now, about getting into property investing properly, like as in not losing money. And they're like, well, look, it's always a good time to buy property if you know what you're doing, right? As long as you know that you are making your money at the entry point of the transaction and you have multiple exits so that you're safe and secure, regardless of what the market does, then it's always a good time. So that's an hour, James. That's absolutely fine. That was an hour that we've been talking all things property tonight. It started with where are all the deals. We've gone into where the market is. We've gone into money. We've gone into leverage. We've gone into the investing.
Future-proofing almost,
Future-proofing your strategies in your business. So we're going to wrap up now. We're aiming to be here every Wednesday, round about 6 o'clock. We might play around with the time a little. These sessions are saved on our Facebook community, so you can see the video of these in the Property Wealth System community page on Facebook. We're going to be live in there every Wednesday as well as here.
Join that page if you're not already in there, so you can get notifications whenever we go live as well.
And we really look forward to seeing either you at one of our 90 minutes free webinars. I know that Ibrahim and Darren are going to be there tomorrow. I'll look forward to seeing you there. And we'll see you all again next week. Take care. Hope that's been helpful.
Bye-bye.